Kyle here from allmediareviews.blogspot.com. Announcements will come after this, hopefully, if I can remember that, but I want to talk about the band OSI. They put out their first 2 records on vinyl. They had an announcement a couple months ago. I think it was in like May or June. And I forgot that they were when exactly they were going to be coming, but I got my copy of the first record that I did order like last week. It was lodged in my in my mailbox somehow. You know, you can imagine something this big in packaging and stuff. It was not a fun task. I spent like half an hour trying to pull the thing out, but anyway, so I have the CD. It's been beaten up, of course. Jim Matheos, Kevin Moore, Mike Portnoy, and Sean Malone, and Steven Wilson featuring on one song. It didn't say featuring on Shutdown, but this is the first OSI album, Office of Strategic Influence. It was the title, I guess, technically, yeah. That came out in 2003, and I'm going to tell the story a little bit about that. I'm just going to show them first, but and then I'll sort of tell the story and more anecdotes and that kind of stuff, of course. But this is the gold colored version of it. This is a record I've always enjoyed when I first heard it. Of course, it sort of came out around the time of, like a lot of like Mike Portnoy specifically doing a lot of side projects. He had done Liquid Tension Experiment in the late 90s, and then he did Transatlantic in early 2000s, and has continued to do Transatlantic, off and on since then. They took their break and stuff like that, so that's the second one. So I'll just say this, this is the one I bought for good reason. Let me show the gatefold. I both like and don't like the fact they keep them in there. I'm going to have to probably put it in. But musically, OSI. So it's it's Jim Matheos. Jim Matheos is probably the primary person originally that came up with this idea or whatever. Jim Matheos, the guitarist and one of the main songwriters from Fate's Warning, favorite of mine. And, what turned out to be basically also Kevin Moore, ex-Dream Theater, who had also played on Fate's Warning's album Perfect Symmetry. It was Perfect Symmetry, not Parallels, which is before... Perfect Symmetry came out before even the first Dream Theater album came out. But then, of course, he later, after he had left Dream Theater and was doing Chroma Key, he later... this came with a download. Oh yeah, what's this right here? Interesting. Oh yeah, it's from the Bandcamp page. It has my code on the back, which I won't be showing, but you can see. Anyway, so Kevin Moore, played on A Pleasant Shade of Grey in '97, and then Disconnected, which came out just a couple of years before this in 2001. Although, as far as I know, Kevin Moore didn't really do any of the actual songwriting or arranging per se. Well, I don't know about the arranging, but from what I can tell, he did contribute creatively to some of the stuff on those records, as far as like patches and stuff like that. And I don't know. I mean, all I know is I don't think he really was given much credit for the songwriting. But this is this version of the CD came out in 2003. I got, and of course it comes out. It shows what happens when CDs get old and cases get old and stuff like that. OSI, Office of Strategic Influence, the name. Man, this is not a good place for this. This is exactly why I used to keep CDs in booklets, and Case Logic books. It's the same kind of stuff in here. It's like a government agency like CIA or FBI, and it's like, Office of Strategic Influence sounds like a government agency, the American government maybe specifically, but man, this is just the reason why I don't use this anymore. The second disc, which includes covers of Pink Floyd's Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun, which is really well done. And the second disc isn't even in here. And New Mama from Neil Young, which uses both of those versions have samples. New Mama, I think of the samples from Rambo, I believe it was. But and then what's known as The Thing That Never Was, and it has a video documentary. I'll have to find the second CD I have in a book. I think it might be my Fates Warning book. I'm not sure. The Thing That Never Was is 17 minutes, and it's like some of the songs sort of before they got cut up, in effect. For lack of a better way to put it, New Math, the title track OSI, or self-titled song, and I think Shutdown, again featuring some of the instrumental parts, and there's some other stuff in it. I didn't get around to listening to that, but it's all included on the bonus tracks, probably on the side 4 or side D or whatever. But what I was going to say, though, so Kevin Moore, and then it's Mike Portnoy as the drummer, and then they had Sean Malone, the late Sean Malone now, of Cynic, and some other, I think he was part of Gordian Knot, which Jim Matheos was involved at one point. So anyway, see, the thing is, OSI, this album is great. This is the first album that came out in 2003. Jim Matheos was approached by Mike Portnoy, as far as I know, to be the guitarist, which would end up becoming Transatlantic, but Jim Matheos was too busy with Fates Warning at the time. So that was like in maybe 98 or 99, probably 99. So the Transatlantic ended up having Ron Stolt from the Flower Kings as the guitarist. But it would have been, maybe called Second Nature. I don't know. Jim Matheos probably would have been in that. But Jim Matheos always wanted to work with Mike Portnoy. They're friends. Fates Warning and Dream Theater had toured at points. John Arch, ex of Fates Warning, actually auditioned for Dream Theater. There's a lot of connections. And Mike knew Jim Matheos, so they wanted to work together. But never happened until this. Now, as far as I know the timeline, Kevin Moore was sort of contacted after the two of them had already been talking. So the other two names that are to be brought up that didn't end up transpiring is one being John Arch. I mentioned used to be the singer of Fates Warning, and John Arch has gone on to work and write a couple albums with Jim Matheos, the Arch Matheos project, but of course he had the solo EP, which Jim Matheos co-wrote the second track, Cheyenne, at Epic, in 2003, the same year this came out. But John Arch actually, I believe, was approached to be the singer on this project at one point as well. But the other big name, untapped opportunity, as far as I remember the history of, was one Daniel Gildenlow of Pain of Salvation. Daniel Gildenlow, around this time, Mike Portnoy had talked to. The Pain of Salvation had opened for Dream Theater in Europe. Mike Portnoy had been talking about Pain of Salvation, and Pain of Salvation was becoming pretty popular among Dream Theater fans. And, Portnoy was a big fan of Pain of Salvation, and he loved Daniel Gildenlow. Daniel Gildenlow ended up being the singer Mike chose to sing with him for the Led Zeppelin tribute, Hammer of the Gods, the same year, late in, November. This came out, I think, early, in November, February. I remember associating it with the Gulf War, the Iraqi War, because it's very militaristic anyway. So Gildenlow, actually, there was one account that I read that at one point Jim and Mike, or Jim sent him some music to do vocals for, which was a 17 or 20, I thought he said 27-minute track. But my guess is that a lot of that ended up being the thing that never was. So, yeah, the possibilities, the what ifs. It's like actors that never end up taking roles that could have been. Who knows how it would have ended up. Gildenlow, of course, is a guitarist, but Gildenlow also had been playing with Transatlantic, ironically, as a fifth member live in 2001, 2002, in that time. So, but it didn't happen, basically because Kevin Moore, my feeling is that Kevin Moore, and maybe Jim also agreed that the vocals he was demoing some of these songs, fit the music well enough that they didn't need to have another singer. Gildenlow probably would have played guitar and it might have ended up sounding a little different. Or keyboards, I don't know, he does that too. But then again, if you have Kevin Moore, why would you need another keyboard? I don't know. I think Kevin Moore's involvement basically kind of ended any chance that Gildenlow or another singer would have ended up being. And you know, album turned out really good. I really love this album, so I'm not upset about that. And that's that fact. The fact that, you know, both Gildenlow and even John Arch might have sang on this record. But so, I mean, from a standpoint, you know, Shutdown's awesome. You did have Steven Wilson as a guest. It's kind of ironic though, in that the one song they did have a guest singer, it wasn't Gildenlow, but Steven Wilson on Shutdown is amazing. That track is amazing. It does remind me of a song from Disconnected, Fates Warning. In fact, a lot of this album does remind me of Disconnected. There's definitely a similarity between some of the sounds and textures, but there's, you know, the samples especially, and they use samples on some of those on Disconnected as well. But Kevin Moore's use of samples on here, I like maybe even a little more. But Head, When You're Ready, Hello Helicopter, that almost sounds like a Peter Gabriel song. And I know Portner was describing this album as kind of Nine Inch Nails and Peter Gabriel like, with doing prog metal. Stand By Looks Like Rain, it's sort of the whole dreamy, melancholy, dark but not like intensely dark moments. Really make this makes this album flow. That some of the samples, this woman, it sounds like an Asian woman talking about from an interview, talking about like a bell or something like that. There's definitely sort of a cultural element, a militaristic element, of course, based on the name and what it sort of sounds like and represents. Government, political conspiracy kind of element to this, and it flows really well. This record has never disappointed me. It's only gotten better over time. It sounds a little bit like Nine Inch Nails or Peter Gabriel at points, but it shares a lot of elements to Fates Warning's more recent work around that time, like Disconnected, and even Chroma Key, of course, because Kevin Moore, you know, his solo record I have right here also, that Ghost Book or whatever. I don't have it in front of me. Yeah, I mean, it was a perfect blend, and, you know, having Sean Malone helped, I thought. So that's the kind of background story on this record, and I can just say what's happened since then with OSI, and, you know, of course, Jim Matheos has done some Fates Warning stuff, and he did Arch Matheos too. I was listening to some of Free earlier, the second album, which also came out on vinyl, and I always liked a few tracks on Free, but never was won over by it the same way. That came out in 2006. But I'll say that the first few tracks, like Sure You Will, the title track and Go, and then I want to say it's there's one other track on here, Kicking. Bigger Wave. But the Free doesn't seem to have a lot of, if any, samples. The guitar riffs are there, sort of dreamy elements there to a point. It's not, I mean, it's, some of the guitar riffs sound, it's almost like OSI part, or Office of Strategic Influence Part 2 in some ways, but I don't know, I was revisiting it, I haven't listened to it all, but, and I remember listening to the demo/remixes at one point. I liked it. I mean, I guess I was maybe a little too harsh on Free. I always kind of felt like it was the second best OSI album after hearing all of their albums, but I probably now, as time has passed, probably was a little too critical of it, and probably see it maybe a little bit better than I did back then. I just, it's like, what do you expect? You expect them to write the same record again? No, I don't want that. But I kind of love that flow and sort of environment and tone of this record, and I didn't quite get that fully from Free. And then, so they put out Blood in 2009, and I know Radiolog was one of the songs I liked, but, I mean, I haven't listened to that probably since 2009. And then Fire Make Thunder was the last record, and that came out, I want to say 2012? Let's see here. Let's see if my internet will cooperate. Yeah, 2012. So, Blood I know people like. They liked more than Free, some people did. I felt like Blood was almost too short. Like, all the songs were, I know they had Michael Ackerfeld for one song, maybe Stockholm, I think. But it was more similar to Free, and it didn't even have as many memorable moments. I mean, I would say that Radiolog was the one that I remember liking. That's a 6-minute song, but... And then Fire Make Thunder, I was hopeful like would be... I don't know, I checked it out, of course, and I really can't even say I liked it as much as Blood, unfortunately, from 2012. So, but, you know, given that I've now revisited Free a little bit, and I'll probably listen to more of the rest of it today, a reassessment could be worth doing with this for their whole catalog, and I would be surprised if I like any of them as much as this record. But, because I remember listening to, it's like, where are the samples again? You know, the samples are one of my favorite parts about the sound on this record. You know, from George W. Bush to Dan Rather to... I'm a sucker for, like, riffs with, you know, voiceovers. I love post-rock and post-metal when they use that kind of stuff, too. So, actually, you could probably call OSI in some ways post-rock. I don't know, there's a lot of elements to OSI. Having, you know, the team of Matheos and Kevin Moore do the writing, and so that's what makes them interesting. I also was going to show that my gold version is the number 20. I got number 24. They didn't put this on the record. I'll probably keep this of only 250 gold copies. So I don't know. I could be sitting here 6 months from now, 2 years from now, thinking I should have bought the Free copy. Then probably can find Free. Probably could have a chance. I would have a chance to find it later. You know, if I feel like I've listened to it and giving a second reassessment on OSI. But to me, at this point, OSI still does remain sort of having a great debut album, and then the rest of their catalog is sort of spotty at best. But, you know, taste can change, your mind can change, perspective can change. I'd be happy to feel like I sort of shortchanged and was won over by the other records since. But regardless of that, this record is still a favorite of mine. One of my favorite records from 2003, and curious about people out there, all you know, Fates Warning, you know, Kevin Moore Dream Theater fans, Mike Portnoy fans. What's your take? A lot of people tend to say actually that Free is their best record. I've seen various opinions, but a little bit like King's X's Manic Moonlight. I sometimes feel like I'm in the minority in that this is clear-cut their best record, but I know a lot of people still do love this album. So what's your take on the first OSI album? If you haven't heard it, go check it out if you like the bands that the members previously had been in. So I still would like to see Portnoy work with Jim Matheos again in some capacity. I know Kevin Moore, he's like he's a physician. He might be a surgeon now. He went to medical school recently, and so he's still doing some music. I know he has like a Patreon and stuff like that, but I know that his primary line of activity and work isn't with music like it once was. But great for him, you know. I mean, the guy is brilliant in what he's done. I can't deny that. I mean, his work in Dream Theater. I'll talk about Chroma Key maybe another time. I love the first Chroma Key album, and obviously working with Fates Warning and on this, you know, I've always been a Kevin Moore fan. You know, even though I'm not as much of a fan of the OSI albums that came out after this. Kevin Moore was a huge part of this album, what I loved about it as well. So, but thank you for watching. I was going to make another announcement that from upcoming videos, I'm looking to make a video about Self. A gentleman made a couple comments on my Kevin Gilbert video. It's a huge Self fan, which is interesting. I've been meaning to, but the band Self, or the Matt Mahaffey, and actually one of their songs is going to be in the Boss Baby 2 movie from Gizmodgery, I think, maybe Patty Cake. And Mute Math is another one that I've earmarked, but then I also want to do at least one video on, I think I mentioned a few videos ago, concert jumps, examples of I don't know if I'll be able to show the actual stubs. Maybe I'll try to pick out some records from the bands I saw, if I can, but I have like 5, 6, 7 of them. I was looking through where I saw one concert one night and then managed to see another concert the same night after that concert was over. And I'll have to tell some of the stories and anecdotes from that stuff. But thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.